Perfect. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. All right.
We're just waiting for a couple of others to join us.
Right. How have you been? It's quite hectic, isn't it, for you?
Yes. Really looking forward to listening to you. Have you joined us from the UAE?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Renuka's not in India at the moment. She's in New York. So she's joining us from there. And Sandy's joining us from New Zealand.
Okay. Okay. We're waiting for the moderator also, Ashwini.
Yes. Yeah.
So let us see. Let's wait. In case there is a delay. Yeah, see Renuka is joining in.
Yes. So then we have just Sandy left.
And Ashwini.
And Ashwini, yes. Yeah.
But in case there is a delay and we go live, you guys can, start.
Yes, absolutely.
And she can join in.
Yeah. Hello. Hi, Renuka.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out how to get the virtual background on.
I think it's fine. Don't bother. We're going to be going live in a minute.
Okay.
Like I was telling Shireen, in case Ashwini, who's the moderator, has not joined in, you ladies
Okay.
step forward and, she will join in and...
Okay.
So
got it.
we're still waiting for a couple of minutes, but...
All right.
And I will only come in the last, I'll introduce you and I'll come in the last 10 minutes just to announce the awards. So don't cut short your discussion.
All right. Okay.
So Renuka, video has gone, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Is this okay? Yeah?
Yes.
Is this back? Yeah? All right.
You look pretty fresh for 4 a.m. in the morning.
Well, just about.
That's amazing. I think for Sandy, it's about 10. She's up. I saw her online earlier.
All right. Yeah.
Well, in WhatsApp, I saw her. Yeah. Active, so. Is Ashwini hosting other sessions as well?
I'm not sure. But I'm sure she's not doing one just before this. So
yeah.
So you have 1 hour, ladies.
Okay.
To talk about everything.
Discussion.
So would you like us to start right away or you?
So we'll just wait for another minute.
Okay.
And then I'll introduce you. I'll introduce both of you at least, and I will say we are waiting for, I'm not sure whether I'll start with you all, and then you guys can start the discussion.
Right.
Okay, now they're asking us, so should we start or should we just wait for 1 minute?
Okay.
Let's just 1 more minute. So in case, if you can connect to Sandy to join.
Yeah. Let me just message her.
Because this is something I'm not familiar with at all.
Okay, join now. Okay. Perfect. Okay.
I'm on my iPad, so if someone has a laptop and can take a screenshot of all of us on at some point, share it with me so I can use it for the article later, please.
I'll do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I will do that. And the point is, how will I share it with you? That is important.
On email.
WhatsApp
Okay.
as well.
Yeah. Tell me the email ID.
So WhatsApp will reduce the resolution, so email would be
Correct.
good actually. Yeah.
We can put the in chat, Renuka, you can put the email for her.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. So I'm going to ask him to start because it's already 2:33.
Mhm.
So you ladies will manage, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Okay. I'll tell you when we're going live. Welcome back, friends, for our next session. This is a panel discussion and on a very interesting topic, women in motoring. We have with us Renuka Kriplani, the host and executive director, Times Network Auto Car Show, who has joined us all the way from New York. I think it's 4 o'clock in the morning there. She's looking pretty fresh. And we have with us Shireen Shabnam, journalist, author, and publicity consultant who has joined us from the UAE. Welcome, ladies.
Well,
We are
thank
also
you.
waiting for a couple of guests. I think they will join in between. So I think you can take on the discussion from here. So here's to an insightful discussion. Over to you, ladies.
Okay. Well, Renuka and I are actually connected with the Women's World Car of the Year awards, and that's how we met. Renuka's been with the WW Koti a lot longer than I am, and she's more of a veteran motoring journalist in India. Renuka, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about your journey, with Autocar.
Absolutely. Thanks, Shireen. Just a small correction. I'm the executive editor, not director, but it's been an amazing journey for me. I mean, I've been in the automotive journalistic world now for almost 18 years. So it's been a long time. And Women's World Car of the Year special because I've been there almost since inception. I think we were the first 4 or 5 or 6 women when Sandy had this dream. And I believe Sandy's going to be joining us in a while. But it's an interesting, I never knew there were so many other women motoring journalists in the world until this group began growing and now we're almost I think 60 of us on that panel. How many of us? So it's amazing to see how many other women there are in the automotive journalist world. And I think, Shireen, you must also always be getting this question about, how did you get there and how did you land there? And for me, I guess I kind of grew up around it. I grew up around cars. My dad used to, restore vintage cars, used to tune race cars and build them. And I grew up with that. I raced, I rallied, I worked with him. I opened up cars, put them back together again. It has always been a passion for me. So, this was kind of a natural progression. Didn't happen naturally. I had a long journey along the way, but here I am and now in automotive journalism, doing something I absolutely love.
Absolutely. I think I had a similar situation with the family being very, very passionate about motoring. I'm from Fiji Islands, and my dad also loved opening cars, putting them back together again. And I think that filtered through to the kids as well. My brother just restored a Defender and put it back on the road, a very old one. And I think it's kind of in our DNA to some extent, and especially being in the Middle East, being part of Dubai, where the whole population is very much into cars. You hear on the roads, you see from the smallest car to the most expensive luxury cars to modified cars. So it's such a beautiful feeling to be out on the road in Dubai, especially.
Amazing. Most of the time when I speak to other women motoring journalists, especially in our group, it's very strange. And, women motoring journalists who come from, countries like in Europe and sometimes even USA, talk about, the fact that women motoring journalists are kind of not as accepted as they should be. I, for one, have never faced sort of any challenges. So I have to say, India in that sense is very, very progressive. I kind of get, my colleagues treat me as one of them. And I think even audiences are, don't really worry about whether it's a woman or a man. They're worried about what's being presented, So
Mhm.
do you face challenges like that, Shireen? Because I've often heard you talk about it.
Yeah, well, I think when we met recently in LA while we were testing cars, we had this conversation. It took me a long time to break into this industry. I think I've been around for 21 years, 18 years of testing and driving and writing about cars, but it's only recently that I think in the last 5 or 6 years that they really started to take notice. And I think the statistics here speak for itself. There's so many more women who influence the decision in buying cars. And I think it was on June 24th, 2018, that manufacturers began to realize and dealers began to realize that, when you put women on the road and you empower them, like Saudi did recently, it also contributes to the economy, not just for buying cars, but you're talking about leasing cars, insurance, maintenance, licenses, parking fees, even driving schools. Because one of the in one of the motor shows that we had in Dubai, we had two women from UK who had come from Saudi, and they were actually driving instructors. And they said it was so it was such a nice feeling for them to be in a country and empowering women in that way, where they were teaching them how to drive, how to be on the road. So I think, apart from contributing to the economy, it was a very late realization, but it took me so long to be accepted, especially by the PR industry here. Often it's run by male PR executives and PR managers who, it's a very, we call it the Habibi culture, where, I have a friend and he's into motoring, so I will pay more attention into him than actually somebody who writes about cars. So, things are changing. I see more women. I feel happy they come to me for advice. They talk to me about how I evolved over the last 18 years breaking into the industry. And I think the more women we empower and nurture, the better we feel about it as well. And WW Koti has also given us that platform to some extent, to be out there.
Absolutely. I mean, I do agree with you. I think women play a very large role in decision making, and it's not only if they are actively the one buying the car. I think in most homes, especially in the Asian culture, back home in India, where we have joint families. Very often, and I've often run this poll and I've asked people, so how important was a woman in helping your decision buying a car? And most of them say very important, because the wife has a say in which car you buy, or sometimes it's a family decision and the women in the house are urging for the more practical option, as vis-a-vis the sporty option. But yes, more and more, I mean, I think people are realizing that women do play a large role in the decision making and the buying of cars. And I think even ads that we often saw targeted directly towards men are now kind of recognizing the fact. And very often you would see only men at the wheel, but now you see advertisements with women at the wheel and maybe the male in the passenger seat. So I think that whole it's changing. And I think manufacturers in general are also realizing that this is a large part of an audience. I very recently, was asked by a manufacturer to give input into a product based on how women would perceive it, and I thought that was pretty interesting. So yeah, I think interesting times ahead, and I think we've got Ashwini with us, and I think Sandy's coming on as well.
Yeah.
Great. I can see Ashwini.
Hi,
Hi, Ashwini.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hi, very good afternoon. Extremely sorry, I'm a little late. I'm actually
Welcome,
in Pune.
Ashwini.
Thank you, Anjana.
So for our viewers, Ashwini is the Associate Vice President, Talent Delivery, World Temp India, and she's going to be moderating this show. So the ladies have already started, so you can take it on from here now.
Right. Of course, there has been an introduction of Shireen and Renuka already.
A small introduction, but I think we can move on now. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Shireen, what is that one thing that you really find it, I would say, exciting for you to be where you are today? What is it, that one pull that gives you all the time to move forward?
It is just being behind the wheel of a different car every week. I think the excitement, the minute I drop a test car, I already look forward to the next one. And each car is so different. Like it's a journey, it's an exploration. It's like, okay, what does it have in store for me? And I think that gets me really excited.
Wonderful. Is there any particular I would say, vehicle or the engine that you are really fond of, or probably try to do any modifications on that?
I drive a Cayenne Turbo, and everybody in the industry asks me, why do I still have this car for so long? And my answer to that always is, well, I drive a different car every week. I hardly get behind the wheel of my own car, but there is a certain bond you start having, you start forming with the car that has been with you for a long time. For me, I consider myself a yummy mummy. I want a car that's got the power, it's got the space, and it's practical, but it also gives me the speed when I want it. So with the Cayenne Turbo, it's a V8 engine. It's powerful. When I bought it, it still is. And I can fit my groceries, the golf bag, my shoes. It's important. I think, people ask me, why do you have 20 pairs of shoes in the car? And when you are a journalist and you are out and about, you basically prepare. People forget how many things women need. I remember one of the funniest articles that were ever written about me was by the national newspaper about 8 to 10 years ago when I was driving a Fortuna. And the journalist asked me, so what made you buy this car? And I said, well, I was looking around in the showroom, and then somebody lifted the boot of a Toyota Fortuna, and there was this perfect space between the seat and the boot to fit a shoe rack. And and she says, but why? I said, well, I live in a different emirate. I work in a different emirate. So I have to be prepared for evening events, for the gym, to be in the desert, to be in the city. And, I think people forget that women need practical cars.
Right.
I made my husband change his car from a 2-door to a 4-door because it was difficult for me to put the car seat in.
Right.
So these are things that car manufacturers often need to think about, that now that more and more women are driving, especially in this region, when Saudi started letting women drive in 2019, the population was 15 million at that time of the female population. And there was 20% of these women were projected to drive. So that meant 3 million extra women within 2 years would be buying cars. So, if you put that into perspective, practical cars are more of what they would be looking for. So
Right.
it makes economic sense as well.
Right. So in specific, it's a male dominated society, be it India or be it any of the Middle East countries. But yes, women have come ahead. But what were the difficulties that you found where I think today we have overcome? But I'm sure there has been a journey for you.
Yes.
So, how would you like to put it across I wouldn't say the struggles, but uh, it can be overwhelming for you as well, as to each and every bit would have been tough and difficult. I'm sure you had all the support from your family, but maybe not everybody. Maybe there were people who would have not been a support. Somebody would be thinking, okay, let me pull Shireen's leg down. I don't want her to go high. I'm sure you've had such moments.
We did. I think it mainly came, unfortunately, from the PR industry of the brands than the brands themselves, because it was a very male-dominated society, and all the opportunities always went to the male colleagues. It never came across. So even now, like, when it comes to, let's say, if there's 6 slots for a journalist to test drive a car, which is unique, you can guarantee that almost all 6 will go to the top 6 male journalists. Like, we would be totally ignored. And I think that needs to change. And I think I was very lucky in the sense that I work for people who are car collectors. My readers are very high-end spenders, being here in this region, writing for the Millionaire Group. My boss himself is a collector, and within the Millionaire Group and with Sheikh Hamad, we have like 1,600 cars that he has as well. So I was in a very different, even having all of that backing me up, having like over 50,000 readers of my articles on LinkedIn, which has the highest purchasing power when it comes to connections, it didn't help at all. It was always a fight, if there was a limited number of people who could drive a car, at least 1 out of 6 should go to a female motoring journalist. And that, I think, is something that we will continue fighting for.
What is that one thing that you would like to tell the young women racers and the rallyists, and in motorsports especially? What is that one thing that you would want them to continue with?
Yeah, I think keep doing what you're doing best. Like, don't let the environment and the culture or the the forces that may be let you down. I mean, we are very lucky in 2021. We have started seeing articles about car mechanics who are women coming up. And we also have a race car driver, Amna Al-Kubaisi, who's now on the international platform. There's Huda Al-Matrushi, who owns a car, a garage. And then there's these cars, like supercar clubs, where Ninth Degree Car Club is amazing for me, because it provides automotive experiences, but it's very inclusive as well for women, and women from all backgrounds. You don't have to be rich or poor to be able to experience. And they do supercar rallies, they do Jeep tours, they do desert drives, they do mountain adventures. So it kind of gives women a chance to explore what speaks to them most.
Right. Excellent, Shireen.
Yeah.
Renuka, would you like to throw some thoughts?
Yeah, well, women in motorsport, I've recently, been asked to join the Women in Motorsport Commission in India, and I'm on that, and I'm really happy to be able to bring more women into motorsport. And I think what a lot of women don't realize, it's not only about the driving, it's also about the other, jobs and profiles, even in the administrative world, the marshalling, the things that women can do around the motoring world, around motorsport. And there's so many opportunities, engineers, mechanics, there's a lot of opportunities out there. But earlier you were talking about, how male dominated it is. My national championship rallying trophy has Mr. Renuka Lalwani, which was my previous surname, written on it. And I still kept it like that till today, to just as a reminder, while my colleagues and my co-rallyists were very, very chilled out and always accepted me on par. I think in general, society assumes motoring to be a male-dominated world. I don't think the people in it as much as the people around expect it to be a very male-dominated world. My co-journalists or my co-rallyists never made me feel that way. But I think society still does. And especially the younger generation, very often now and then again on YouTube, you'll kind of get comments about, why is a woman reviewing cars? And that's, the strange part about it. But in general, I think, people are more worried about, like I was telling Shireen earlier, the content you put out as opposed to whether it's a male or a female. And I think it's changed a lot over the years. And I think that's really great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I think we do have a lot of people who really want to promote motorsports in India right now. We do have somebody called Vamsi Marla, who actually is I would say, promoter for INRC. I think we do have the first one that's coming up in Vijayawada on 17th and 18th. So he has ensured that women are getting free cars, free stay, travel, food, and including the crew. Everything is being given free. So I think we need more of people like that who can actually push in women, not just be at work from home mom, or probably somebody who is just at home taking care of the entire family. I think we need more promoters.
I think it's happening. It's not only in motorsport. If you look at MG in India, they're increasing the amount of women on the shop floor in their factories. Ola Electric announced that their entire factory was women only, and that was 10,000 people strong. So it's changing, and I think more and more women are being given opportunities and a podium to kind of stand up and be at the forefront in the world of motoring. And I think it's very interesting. A lot of manufacturers are giving this a push. We're seeing women CEOs in automotive world, and I think that's interesting. It's changing. It most definitely is changing.
Yeah. I think recently we had Jeep, who got all the women motoring journalists together online for our presentation. And it was interesting to see Jeep doing that, because you don't often associate the car to the ladies. So it certainly is opening up, in a big way.
Right. Are there any other international platforms, Shireen, that you feel that women can come along? Because right now I know that we did have something called as Formula Women, for where each country would select 5 women, not just on the karting experience, but also there were a lot of assessments that happened just 2 weeks back. And I think there are 12 countries who will choose 5 women from each country, and these women will be going to UK to drive the McLarens.
Oh,
So
wow.
I think this is something that probably not just UK, not just Formula Women. I think every country should adapt this and try to see how we could imbibe different cultures. Now, I'm super excited because there are a couple of my friends who got the opportunity, who would be going to UK, but they will also be meeting those empowered 55 other women as well.
That's
So,
amazing.
in India, just before the pandemic broke out, we did at Autocar India, we organized a advanced driver training program for women across India, especially women who weren't really into motor racing or hadn't experienced this before. And we did this in tandem with Ford at that time, who were very keen that we get women behind the wheel of the cars. And we were really, really surprised with the kind of turnout we got in each city. I mean, there was kind of pressure to get a certain amount of women every weekend. And I was a bit worried, thinking I wouldn't go above 40 or 50. But we were sold out like in hours of launching within each city. And we had over more than 200 women in each city that we went to. We went to 5 cities across India. Coming across a weekend, so over a Saturday and a Sunday, and doing this driver training program. And it was interesting because their husbands came with them, and they were like, why can't we do this? Why is, it was the reverse. Why is this only for women? So it was an interesting time. And I was really surprised to see the cross section of women. that came from Ola drivers to women with families, mothers, daughters coming together. And a lot of them said, that we love this, we love the adrenaline rush, we would love to do this. But very often they were apprehensive to go to another event because they were scared of what would happen in being compared with men. But since this was an all-woman platform, they felt really, easy to come out. They felt like, they would be not judged like they would. And that was one thing that really came across to me, that a lot of women don't come out into motoring or into motorsport because they feel they'll be judged. Yeah. And I often say this to women, I say, why do you think that? It's conditioning. Yeah. I said, tell a man to get into a sari, put him in high heels and ask him to drive a car and see how well he'll do it. We do it like naturally. So, why do you worry about being judged? Everybody has a different way of doing things. So I think, it's years and years and years of conditioning, of hearing about it, of feeling that, women can't drive. That's been there, said, there's been jokes that's been made about it. And I think that's why it exists. So it's kind of in the mind. I think in today's world, women can drive as well or often better than men, depending on what the situation is. I think it's completely on par. And I think that they shouldn't feel like they'd be judged. I think you just go out there and do the best you can, and that's what matters.
Yeah. Speaking of women driving better, the UAE Road Safety Monitor did a research over 6 years, and they found that over time that women tailgated less, they sped less, and they were less involved in accidents as well.
So I think that's, on many surveys across the world, that's been the case, Shireen. But I think that's because by nature, women will often have children in the car. They'll, be chauffeuring children, and they're generally safer drivers out on the road because, they're more practical, they're safer. It's just the nature of women quite often that ensures that they're safer drivers out on the road. Yeah.
And speaking of opportunities and people who are doing programs together, there's also the She's Mercedes program. I think,
that's
I'm
right.
not sure if it is global or not, but I think in the UAE, they did do 1 or 2 activations. But again, every activation has a loophole. In this case, the use of always car brands using influencers. It gave like the feedback that I received from women who want to get into motoring were like, yeah, but we are not influencers. And I think brands need to start engaging with real people, not just somebody who can pout or who can, dress well, because at the end of the day, the outreach should be to, to people who can actually go out and be empowered to buy or drive a car. And that can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be an influencer all the time.
Right.
Yeah, I think in India, I think the motoring industry does realize that. And I think, we see a lot of magazines, television channels. I mean, like Autocar has a reach of almost about 2 million people on YouTube. We have a television show, and that makes a difference. So I think in that sense, we're quite different here, Shireen, to what you're facing there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Every time I speak to your colleagues in India, I feel like they're so different, they're so inclusive, they're so out there, and I think we need to encourage that culture here as well, where it's more inclusive. It's not always about, getting into a activation program and that it's all people the normal public can't relate to. And this idea, I had to actually educate a lot of women out here who are like, oh, I'd love to drive that car. And I say, well, you just have to walk into a showroom, show interest that you really are into that car, and they will take you on a test drive, and you see their eyes pop open. Mm-hmm. Oh, really? Can I do that? And I say, yeah, you can. And I think a lot of women kind of feel that maybe this thing is only for men. When they walk into a showroom, they let the man, the brother or the husband take the lead, when it's not necessarily the case. They just need to be educated that you are a buyer too. This is a car for you, and hence
That's
you
where I
should be
think
just driving it.
that's where I think it needs to change, because it's the salespeople on the showroom floor that make that feeling happen. Very often the manufacturer is not the one, but the way that the salespeople are trained, they tend to turn around and talk to the man in the group. Very rarely will they talk to a woman. And this is something I've often spoken about, even with manufacturers. I've said that salespeople need to be trained to understand that, even women go out there and buy cars, and they can talk to the women and they can explain, and women can also know technical things. These days the internet lets everybody know everything. So not to assume that women know nothing about cars.
Absolutely, yeah. And also like, being incentivized, like in certain countries also, like they recognize people who drive safe, and they often find that it's actually women who are driving safe, and that motivates them to drive more. We recently had a program here with where I think over 500,000 people were awarded like they tested them for safe driving, and 80% of the people who got the 25% discount for all their traffic things were women, because they did a 6-year thing, six-month thing, sorry. Yeah,
It's amazing. So I think, like you said, things are changing. Like when, in India, the Mahindra Thar was launched, which is, an out and out 4x4 vehicle. I was asked to do a drive with women, and the reaction of most of the women when they went out and drove that car was like, oh my God, I would never have got into this, but it's actually so easy to drive. So, I think, there is sometimes a hesitation, like you said, from women. But once they get out there and actually get their hands behind the wheel, that all changes.
And I think they need to start young as well. I remember when my daughter turned 18, the first thing we did was actually get her to start driving. And the reaction from people around was like, but isn't she too young? And we were like, well, we start driving when we are 16 in Fiji. So 18 is already 2 years late. So, and hence just getting her behind the wheel, we started posting pictures of her in the car driving around. And I think they tend to get women to start late. Families think it's not important, we can drive them everywhere they need to go. But I think it's so important to empower them early. Like now when I get a test car and I sit behind the wheel, my daughter is the passenger, starts exploring and telling me, okay, did you know that you have this technology that you can actually use in the car? And I think we are so focused on driving that we forget that more and more cars come equipped with things to make our drive experience easier. Anything, and it takes somebody young, a millennial, to touch the buttons and tell us that, you can do that.
I mean, like I said, the world of the internet, the fact that more and more things are digital, online, I think everyone has access to the same information out there. And I think we're seeing so many of our women motoring journalists have websites that are targeted as well towards women and making it women specific. So there's a lot of information, I think, out there that was never out there before. I think even technical information, a lot of women have access to. At Autocar, once a year, we run a supplement that is targeted specifically to women. And we write about all kinds of women in the motoring industry, whether it's on the side of the manufacturers, whether it's, women in the motoring industry who've made a mark, or whether it's in motorsport, or, even women car buyers. So I think there is a specific audience now, and I think over the years that's changed. And even when we started Women's World Car of the Year, people assumed that this was a group that was deciding about a car for women. And I think that's what we tried very, very hard to break that perception. And across the years, it's changed, and we've been recognized more and more as a group. The idea was that this is a group of women motoring journalists that are voting on a car of the year. It's not just that we're voting for a car that's made for women. It's as any other journalist would. It's just a group of women motoring journalists. So I think that's changed, that perception. We've managed to change that over the years. And we've made people realize that, here's a group of women, and they're also voting on a World Car of the Year. And that is a group that matters.
Yeah. And it's not just small cars. I mean, we've got people on our jury panel who drive trucks, big trucks. Like you take Charlene from South Africa.
Yeah.
I mean, she's so gutsy, and you see her more in trucks than in normal cars. So it's not just about, these are women, so they drive small cars. It's not like that, at all.
Yeah. No, and I think it brings a different perspective to the table. It brings a different view. Like you said, there are certain reasons that you go out and choose a car, and it's certainly a different perspective to, someone who just probably look under the hood and decide to buy a car because of the kind of power it had, So there is a different side to it. And more and more, I think across the world, there is a recognition that there's different sections of buyers. Women make a difference in selecting those cars. So I think Women's World Car of the Year does manage to put that across.
Absolutely, yeah. And
I have a message from Sandy here who says she's trying very hard to log on, but has been unable to. So unfortunately, she's had problems.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah, and she has been the brainchild behind WW Koti, and I remember it was so nice to hear from her a few years ago when she said, we really need a woman from the Middle East to be part of the jury, and we want to be inclusive. And since then, we've grown so far. I mean, we've made friends from women from pretty much countries that we didn't imagine we would have a jury from. And sharing their ideas, what cars they like, what, sort of driving they do, their capabilities. It's so empowering listening to them and seeing them out on the road. We've got a very active community on WhatsApp group. We've got, we have an Instagram account, and we tend to share a lot of our views of cars that we drive that are common between countries as well. As well, yeah.
Sorry, that's Sandy. I was just trying to give her instructions on how to get on because she was finding an issue to get on.
Yes, yeah. Perfect.
So I'm sorry, I was a bit out of it there. I'm trying to get Sandy to get onto the session and join.
Yeah,
she's been trying to join, and I'm WhatsApping her some instructions out there. So just give me a minute. I'll get back to you because I'm just on WhatsApp with her. I'm trying to get her to log on. We probably might have her in a minute or two.
Yeah. So Ashwini, we can't hear you.
Shireen, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Right.
Yes.
Just wanted to check, have you anytime felt your own fellow women trying to pull you down, or your peers? Have you had that kind of an experience anytime?
Well, we actually don't have many female motoring journalists, and I think it's more because we are based in Dubai, which is a very transient society. So people come, they stay a few years and they go. So over the years, we've had one or two of my colleagues who've come here and they've been with us. And then it's really sad to see them go because of, this is not the country they're from. So so as a result of that, we don't find that kind of competitiveness where people are bringing each other down, because I think we actually embrace the fact that the one or two women who are entering the industry, because we feel like we are outnumbered in so many ways. So when one or two do show interest, we embrace that, as opposed to like being competitive kind of thing. And
Great.
I like, especially like looking at the younger generation. Like, I'm actually already looking at my daughter as the person who in the future will take on All About Wheels, because I see her passion. I see her get in the car and get excited, and she's more excited about the cars that I'm driving as opposed to her own car. So if you tell her, can you go out for a drive, you shouldn't be staying in the house for so long, she's not that keen. But if I am driving and she can sit next to me and explore, just the technology excites her, because I think car companies are now putting in so many things that entertain the younger generation as well. And she gets excited about ambient lights, the fact that there's a massage option in the car, like things like that. And I've driven cars for 3 days and I haven't realized there's a massage option. But being a millennial sitting next to me with all the time in the world, she checks it and she's like, oh, did you know, there's that in the car as well. So I think females being inquisitive, they have it in them, to explore and to try new things as well.
Right.
Yeah, we hope to see more women. I think with Saudi, opening up to women drivers, the first person we saw, they've got Saudi racing women. We've got UAE races coming up now who've become role models, and things are changing, and it's no longer just women being influential in buying a car. They're actually getting involved. When we go to the go-karting here, just behind the Dubai Autodrome, there's a big go-karting setup. And you often see these very young girls, like in their teens and young adults, who are so excited about, and they are competitive on the go-karting field, as friends.
I think, Ashwini, you would have seen more and more women come into the motorsports scene in India
Yes.
over the past few years. I think actually in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, I've seen it happen so much more. In my time, we were barely 2-3 women around in the motorsport scenario. But now I see, a whole lot of them. And it's really interesting. A lot of them competing very actively and, winning events. We've seen women like Aishwarya Pise, a female biker who's gone out and done Baja across the world. So, yeah, I think more and more women really going out there, picking up the challenge and doing things.
Actually, when they have rallies here, we see a lot of women from India coming, as opposed to women from our own region joining in. So it's kind of exciting to see them.
Yeah, but if you hear Aishwarya's story as well, she's another person who talks about, the difficulties and how difficult it was to be accepted, and, how it took her so much time, to be able to, as a woman, get into the competitive field and world. So, yeah, there have been challenges, and I think women in motoring do face challenges. It's not like it doesn't exist. Sometimes it's just pure physical strength and training that may not be as as equal. It's also people from the home. Like her parents absolutely didn't think that this could be a career for her, and that was one of the biggest challenges for her. So a lot of parents, I think, have apprehensions. They think it's, in motorsport, that it's dangerous. Oh, what will a woman do in this field? So those kind of barriers, but are being broken more and more. And I think more and more people are now, realizing that there can be, in fact, very recently, I met a mother-daughter duo, and she said that it was her daughter that got her into the world of motorsport. And now both of them go out and do motorsports. Yeah. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I think family plays a big role.
So are you talking about Aman Jabal? Or
yes,
yeah, right?
Aman Jabal.
Yes, because I do remember when her daughter actually literally pull the vehicle over the ramp. And
Yeah.
we were so scared. We just ran in, but touched not a single scratch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Dio. I think we do have another Dio as well. Though they also come in from Delhi, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, a lot of mother-daughter. We do have Shivani and her mom Dipti. Both are Prithvis. So we do have a mom and daughter combination out here in South as well.
And you see Hari Singh's daughter now coming into the world of
Yes.
motorsport. She's officiating at events, and here's a father who's putting his daughter at the forefront. And we have Sandy with us.
Sandy.
Yes,
hello.
finally, you have me from New Zealand, and it's
Sandy,
really
the
late
floor
at
is
night.
yours
It's,
now. We have so much to listen.
So ladies,
yeah,
you have
I
8
know. I'm
minutes.
sorry I've missed it all, but it's 11:15 at night here, and I'm finally. It's lovely to see you, Shireen, and it's lovely to see you, Renuka, and
Same
everybody else
here.
who was in there.
Same
And
Well, you're better off than me, Sandy. It's 4 a.m. where I am in New York. So
oh, okay. Well, we're doing very well to be here. I don't know where we're at because I've missed most of it, but
Sandy, I think you can tell everyone about, the Women's World Car of the Year. We've been talking about it. We've been talking about the group, but you can talk about how you started it all off and, what a journey it's been.
well, it was 13 years ago, and I got an email today from Luann Hammond in the United States, and she was one of the first journalists that I contacted, along with you, Renuka. And
right.
we had 7 journalists who joined Women's World Car of the Year, and we had our first live session in London in 2009. So that was a long time ago. And now we're on every continent in the world. And now we have sort of 32, 33 judges. And Marta Garcia is heading it up, and she's doing a grand job. It's just that we've finally got some recognition. The motor companies in Europe are phoning Marta and asking about Women's World Car of the Year, and the motor companies here in New Zealand and Australia are giving journalists the cars to drive because they want it to be voted for. They want their car to be voted for. And it's just, it's like an overnight sensation. It's only taken 12 years. And I just think that that's a little bit like the motor industry. The motor industry is really heavily dominated by men, and they just don't get it. And I got something through from Marta just a wee while ago, and I'll read it to you. And she said, there is a problem in the automotive sector that car brands still don't understand women. They still don't empathize. They still don't reach our feelings, and they still can't understand our way of thinking. And it's a tremendously masculine sector. And just to make an analogy, in the cosmetics world, they've got it right. They have managed to captivate men, and now almost all men use creams to a greater or lesser extent. There's another very significant example in Spain. The women's marathon is held every year to draw attention to breast cancer. It's sponsored by a milk brand, which, as you can imagine, has nothing to do with women. But car manufacturers have failed to touch our hearts. And I hope that with Women's World Car of the Year, that this is what we are going to achieve in 2022.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, we were talking earlier before you joined, Sandy, as to how it has managed to change. And, even when we see advertisements, we now see more and more women at the wheel than we did before. When we see motoring advertisements, we see a lot of car manufacturers, especially in India, I was talking to them earlier about how MG and Ola have made massive efforts to get women not only, not only in the buying section, but behind, in their factories, on the shop floors, to have women workforces. They're moving, mountains and really doing a lot to get women into the shop floor and telling them that this could be a work area for them as well, that it's not only a male dominated sector. So especially here in our country, in India, I see it changing a lot. I see a lot of manufacturers, like we did the event with Ford where we targeted especially women. I see Mahindra talk about, taking women on drives. So there is a movement, and I see it happening more and more on quite a few fronts.
Absolutely.
Well, it's
She is
absolutely
Mercedes, like
wonderful.
Shireen spoke about.
Mhm. Sorry, carry on.
Even Mercedes has a program called She's Mercedes, where they talk about, women in different fields that are excelling. And so, yeah, there is a lot of, I think, change in the way, it's being communicated.
Well, I think that's absolutely fine. I think that one of the things that the motor companies don't realize, and then I'm talking mainly about Europe and England and possibly the United States, is that they don't understand that women make the final decision in as much as 83% of all car purchases. And yet they still market to men. If you see car advertisements on television, it is men driving, and the little woman is sitting next to him and being very, very sort of, really happy that she's not driving. But otherwise, if they don't have that little woman in the passenger seat, they don't have anybody at all. And that's how they get around it. They don't have women in the driving seat making the decision. And I think that that's got to change. And I think that that maybe will change. And I think that maybe most of the motor companies are starting to recognize that women do make that final decision, but it's how they're represented is just, my question is that they haven't really represented it so well.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the projected revenue that's expected from the motoring industry by 2030, it's about $9 trillion US, and a big percentage of that are going to be women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're probably 49% of the whole car buying public, and they can't ignore us for too long. Even if we don't actually buy the car, we make the final decision in 80 to 85% of all car purchases. And this is in Europe and the United States and North America and in Southeast Asia, where I am, in the South Pacific. And that seems to be the figure that people work on. But still the motor companies don't get it. They don't show that in television commercials. They don't show it in print commercials. And they just sort of kind of ignore women. I do think that it is changing slowly. And I think that it's taken quite a while. And I think that we are going to see a different perspective over the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, before you joined, Sandy, we were talking about, while I do see, the manufacturer's perspective changing, and I see that changing quite a lot, especially in India. Where we don't see it changing is on showroom floors, where, often there are male salesmen. And they will always turn around and talk to the man in the group, and not, like, even if the woman asks a question, the answer will go to the man in the group, and that needs to change. That's where I think, for me in India, that's where I need to see the biggest change. They need to recognize that the woman is walking there into the showroom and buying the car as well. And she's going to go out and drive it. And, she also knows a whole lot of technical stuff, and she could very well, be the one that is signing that check as well. So pay attention to her too.
Well, I think that's a very good point. And I think that because the motor industry is so dominated by men, and men are in the showroom, but I think that's not just in India, it's in China. And China, the men go out to buy a car, but they will not make the final decision unless they have talked to the women in their family about it. But there is a disjoint between that and what the motor industry is showing on television commercials and in print commercials and in radio commercials. It is a disjoint, but I think that over the next year or 2 or 5 years that will change. And I think that Women's World Car of the Year has got quite a lot to do with it, because motor companies are now phoning up Marta in Europe and asking her opinion. And they're phoning up myself and Liz Swanton in Australia and New Zealand and asking our opinion. And so I think as long as that's starting to happen, then it will follow through that we will have some change.
Absolutely.
Hopefully in the next 5 years, maybe.
I'm so sorry to interrupt such a wonderful discussion, but now we're running out of time. We have another session in a few minutes. So at this point, I have a very special announcement to make. The Global Annual Women's Economic Forum would like to confer on Renuka Kriplani an award of the Exceptional Leader of Excellence.
Thank you.
Oh,
That is
fantastic.
fantastic.
And the Women's Economic Forum would also like to confer on Shireen Shabnam the Exceptional Leader of Excellence Award also.
Oh my God.
Oh, brilliant.
you.
Thank you so much.
And the Global Women's Economic Forum would like to also confer on Sandy Meyer the Exceptional Leader of Excellence Award. I'm so sorry that we couldn't hear more of you. Everybody was really looking forward to having you here. And so glad you could join us at least for 10 minutes. And
Yes, well,
not the least, we have Ashwini Bogadi, the moderator for today. Women's Economic Forum would like to also confer on her the Exceptional Leader of Excellence Award. Thank you so much. For being here.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
such a pleasure being part of this.
Yes, it was. Yeah, even though I
pleasure.
was a little bit late, but yeah, we got there in the end. So thank you so much.
And I learned a lot from all of you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice having
Take
you.
care.
Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.